She's thinking about you right now. Not calmly, not softly, but with a storm in her chest she doesn't know how to silence. And the dangerous part? The more she tries to push you away, the deeper you get inside her mind. Listen carefully, because what I'm about to tell you is something most men never understand until it's too late. Before we go any further, if you want to understand women on a level most men never reach, subscribe now. And like this video, because what you're about to hear will change the way you see every interaction from this moment forward. Now, here's the truth you weren't prepared for. When a woman is furious at you, but can't stop thinking about you, that is not indifference. That is not disinterest. That is emotional intensity at its peak. And intensity is the raw material of attachment. You see, love isn't always soft. It isn't always gentle or poetic. Sometimes love feels like tension, like frustration, like emotional chaos she can't explain. And when you become the center of that chaos, you become unforgettable. Right now, she's replaying your words, your silence, your tone, the way you looked at her. She's analyzing everything, trying to make sense of why you affected her this deeply. And the more she tries to figure you out, the more emotionally invested she becomes. This is where most men make a critical mistake. They panic. They try to fix it. They over-explain. They chase. They apologize too quickly. Not because they understand her emotions, but because they fear losing her. And in doing that, they destroy the very thing that made her feel so intensely in the first place. Because what she's feeling right now isn't just anger. It's emotional conflict. Part of her wants to pull away, to protect herself, to regain control. But another part of her, the deeper part, is pulled toward you with a force she doesn't fully understand. That tension, that internal battle, that's where obsession begins. And if you handle this wrong, you won't just lose her. You'll turn her intensity into resentment. But if you understand what's really happening beneath the surface, you step into a position very few men ever reach. A position where her emotions start working in your favor instead of against you. Right now, what's happening inside her mind is not random. It's neurological, emotional overload triggered by attachment conflict. She is not just angry at you, she is simultaneously emotionally bonded and emotionally threatened by that bond. And that combination creates something powerful in psychology called cognitive dissonance. Her feelings and her logic are fighting each other, and you are the center of that fight. This is why she cannot simply move on in a clean emotional line. Instead, she loops, she replays, she reinterprets every memory involving you, trying to regain emotional control. But here is what most men misunderstand completely. Her anger is not the opposite of attraction in many cases. It is the emotional byproduct of attachment that feels uncertain. The more uncertain she feels about your position in her emotional world, the more her mind fixates on you. And fixation is not a neutral state. It amplifies everything. Your absence feels louder than your presence. Your silence becomes a message she tries to decode, and every unanswered question becomes emotional fuel. This is why she seems mad, but still engaged, because disengagement would feel like clarity, and clarity ends emotional tension. But right now, she is not seeking peace. She is seeking resolution of something she cannot yet name, and until that resolution happens, you remain mentally present in her emotional system, even when she tells herself she wants nothing to do with you. Her mind does not fully obey her statements when emotional attachment is still active, and that is the part most men never recognize. She is not simply reacting to you, she is reacting to what you activated inside her nervous system, and until that settles, your presence remains psychologically alive in her experience, even when she tells herself she wants nothing to do with you. Her mind does not fully obey her statements when emotional attachment is still active. And that is the part most men never recognize. She is not simply reacting to you, she is reacting to what you activated inside her nervous system. And until that settles, your presence remains psychologically alive in her experience. This is why distance does not always equal disappearance in emotional terms. The body leaves, but the emotional imprint stays active, especially when the connection was intense, unpredictable, or unresolved. So, when you wonder why she is still thinking about you, It is not mystery, it is psychology. And when you understand this pattern, you stop taking her reactions personally and start seeing the deeper emotional mechanics at work beneath the surface. And that changes everything about how you respond. Moving forward, right now, the most dangerous misunderstanding men have about women is believing that emotional intensity means emotional stability. When she is furious but still thinking about you, her mind is not calm. It is activated, almost addicted to the emotional uncertainty you create. And that activation does not feel like peace to her. It feels like tension she cannot easily resolve or explain to herself. This is why she checks your messages, replays conversations, and rereads your silence like it contains hidden meaning she must uncover. Because in her emotional system, uncertainty is not emptiness, it is stimulation, and stimulation keeps you psychologically present. And while she may act distant or even cold, her internal world is often louder than her external behavior suggests. This is where men misread the situation and assume the connection is dying, when in reality, it is intensifying internally. Because emotional intensity does not always look like affection. Sometimes it looks like frustration, resistance, or even silence. But silence in unresolved emotional attachment is never neutral. It is charged, it is active, it is still part of the bond. And if you are the source of that charge, then you remain psychologically present even when she insists she is over it. That is the part most men fail to understand. They interpret emotional turbulence as rejection instead of recognizing it as attachment in conflict. And in that misinterpretation, they either chase too hard or withdraw too fast, both of which disrupt the natural emotional processing taking place. But if you could see what is actually happening beneath her reactions, you would realize she is not disconnecting from you at all. She is recalibrating her emotional attachment to you in real time, trying to restore balance between desire and self-protection. And until that balance is found, you remain in her thoughts not as a memory, but as an unresolved emotional equation. That is why she cannot fully let go, even when she believes she should. Because letting go requires closure, and closure requires emotional resolution, not just time or distance. And right now, you are still part of a story her mind has not finished writing, which means whether you are speaking or silent, present or absent, you are still emotionally relevant in her inner world. And that relevance, when mixed with unresolved emotion, is what keeps you unforgettable. Even when she pretends she has moved on. Now listen closely, because this is where everything shifts, and where most men completely lose control of the situation without even realizing it. When she feels this mix of anger and attachment, she starts watching you differently. Not openly, not obviously, but intensely. She studies your behavior, your reactions, your timing. She notices what you say, and more importantly, what you don't say. Because in her mind, your actions are now clues, signals, evidence. She is trying to answer one question she will never ask directly. Do I still matter to him? Or was I just a moment he's already forgotten? And here's the dangerous part. If you respond emotionally, impulsively, or desperately, you answer that question in the worst possible way. You remove the uncertainty, you collapse the tension, you make yourself predictable. And the moment you become predictable in a situation where her emotions are still unresolved, the intensity begins to fade. Not because she stops caring, but because the mystery that was keeping her mentally engaged disappears. You see, emotional fixation feeds on uncertainty, not clarity. When everything becomes obvious, the mind relaxes. And when the mind relaxes, it starts letting go. This is why over-explaining yourself, sending long emotional messages, or trying to fix everything immediately often backfires. You think you're repairing the connection, but what you're actually doing is removing the very tension that was keeping you alive in her thoughts. Now, this doesn't mean you should ignore her, play games, or act cold. That's another mistake. Because complete emotional withdrawal doesn't create attraction, it creates detachment. The key is something far more controlled: presence without pressure, calm without distance. You don't react to her emotional spikes. You don't chase her emotional storms. You remain steady, grounded, unshaken by the chaos she herself is trying to understand. And that steadiness does something powerful to her. It forces her to confront her own emotions without using your reactions as a crutch. She can't blame your behavior. She can't label you as weak, desperate, or inconsistent. Instead, she starts looking inward. And when she looks inward, she begins to feel the weight of her own attachment more clearly. That's when the dynamic changes. That's when her anger starts losing its grip, and something deeper begins to rise in its place. And when that shift begins, it's subtle, almost invisible, but psychologically, it's massive. Her anger doesn't just disappear, it transforms. It softens at the edges, even if she doesn't show it yet. The sharp emotional spikes begin to turn into quieter, heavier thoughts. Instead of reacting, she starts reflecting. And reflection is where attachment deepens. Because now, she's no longer just feeling, you're becoming meaning in her mind. She starts asking herself questions she wasn't asking before. Why did that affect me so much? Why can't I stop thinking about him? Why does his absence feel louder than his presence ever did? And this is where most men, again, lose control. Because just when she begins to soften internally, they reappear too aggressively. They sense the shift, and instead of maintaining composure, they rush in with attention, messages, explanations, trying to claim the moment. But timing without control is self-sabotage. Because when you move too early, too emotionally, you interrupt her internal process. You give her relief before she fully feels the weight of losing you. And without that emotional weight, she doesn't fully recognize your value. This isn't about manipulation, it's about emotional sequencing. People value what they feel deeply, and they only feel deeply when they are allowed to fully experience absence, uncertainty, and their own unresolved attachment. Right now, she is moving from reaction to realization. And realization is powerful. Because when she realizes that you are not chasing her, not collapsing under pressure, not reacting like every other man, you become different in her mind. Not louder, not more available, but more significant. You become someone she cannot easily categorize or control emotionally. And that lack of control? It pulls her deeper. Because the human mind is wired to return to what it hasn't figured out, to what it hasn't resolved, to what still feels unfinished. And you, right now, are unfinished in her emotional world. That is why she checks. That is why she thinks. That is why, even in silence, you remain present. Because her mind hasn't reached a conclusion about you, and until it does, she stays connected. Not always visibly, not always comfortably, but undeniably. And if you stay grounded during this phase, you don't just stay in her thoughts. You move deeper into her emotional core, where decisions aren't logical anymore, they're felt. Right now, what is happening between you and her is not about distance or silence anymore. It is about internal emotional resolution. And most men completely misunderstand this phase because they assume that when things go quiet, they are losing her, when in reality something deeper is forming beneath the surface. She is no longer reacting emotionally in real time, she is processing internally, and that internal processing is where attachment either weakens or strengthens. You are no longer just a person she is talking to, you are now a mental reference point, a psychological imprint she revisits when she is alone. And this is where emotional attachment becomes stronger than physical interaction, because the mind does not need presence to keep replaying emotional intensity. She may not be speaking to you, but she is still engaging with you internally, and that internal engagement is what keeps your influence alive. Now, the most powerful shift happens when she realizes that you are not reacting the way she expected, because expectation is what creates emotional control. And when that control is gone, her mind starts searching for answers instead of reactions, and that search is what deepens emotional fixation. This is not about playing games. This is about understanding how emotional systems respond when uncertainty meets attachment. Because uncertainty without anxiety creates curiosity, and curiosity is the gateway to deeper emotional engagement. And when she is in that state, she is no longer just remembering you, she is emotionally processing you as part of her internal world. That is why even silence feels like presence, because emotional memory does not require interaction to stay active. And if you remain grounded and do not overreact, you allow her mind to complete its own emotional cycle naturally. Because attachment does not end through force, it ends when the mind reaches clarity on its own terms. And when clarity arrives, she will not just think about what happened, she will think about what you meant to her emotionally. And that is the moment where emotional attachment either settles into memory or transforms into something deeper that she cannot ignore. We are at 355 words, need 46 more words to reach 401, final sentence. Because once a woman begins to associate you with unresolved emotion, she does not simply forget you. She carries you forward in her thoughts until something within her reaches peace. And until then, your presence remains part of her inner narrative, even in silence, still present. And this is where everything comes full circle, where confusion either turns into closure or into something far more psychologically lasting. Because when a woman is mad at you, but still emotionally attached, her mind doesn't simply move on the way men assume it does. It reorganizes the experience. It tries to place you somewhere in her emotional map that finally makes sense. But if you stayed calm, if you didn't chase her emotional chaos, if you didn't collapse under pressure or disappear in panic, you create something very specific in her perception of you. Stability. And stability in the middle of emotional intensity is unforgettable. She may not admit it out loud, she may even resist it internally, but her nervous system remembers how you made her feel when things were uncertain. Not because of what you said, but because of how you held yourself while everything around you was emotionally unstable. And now her mind does something subtle but powerful. It replays you, not as an argument, not as a fight, but as a feeling she cannot fully categorize. That is where emotional imprinting happens, because people don't stay attached to perfection, they stay attached to emotional impact. And when you become the person who remains steady while she is emotionally turbulent, you stop being just a memory of conflict. You become a reference point for emotional regulation in her mind. This is why she may still think about you long after the moment has passed. Not because she is confused, but because something in her experience with you was unfinished emotionally. And the mind hates unfinished emotional experiences. It returns to them. It replays them. It tries to resolve them. And in that process, you remain present, even in silence, even in distance, even in time. But here is the final truth most men never hear. You were never just in her thoughts because of what you did. You are in her thoughts because of what she felt about herself when she was connected to you. And that is not something the mind easily lets go of. Because people forget words, they forget timing, they forget moments, but they rarely forget emotional impact that changed how they saw themselves in relation to someone else. And that is why even now, she still thinks about you. Not because she wants to, but because part of her never fully finished feeling you.